Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Midwest Ag This Week. I'm Stu Ellis. I take care of the farm chores here at WCIA 3. We begin our show this week with some less than good news from the EPA about ethanol that was just announced Thursday. We'll have a report on Dicamba failing to control water hemp. We'll eat some turkey, sell some tractors, along with some other fascinating news for you, which all begins right now.
Welcome to Midwest Ag This Week with host Stu Ellis.
Well, the Environmental Protection Agency again, Thursday said it would delay its announcements of how much ethanol that petroleum refiners would have to blend into this year's motor fuels. I caught up with Chris Bliley of the ethanol trade group Growth Energy at a Kansas City conference and asked about the EPA kicking the can down the road once again.
Well, we got some disappointing news today where the EPA has really kicked the can down the road again on the annual compliance deadlines for the renewable volume obligations. We're looking for EPA to get out proposals for 2021 and 2022, and they're delayed on those. And instead, EPA's come out with an announcement today where they're going to extend the deadlines nearly indefinitely, and it's extremely disappointing and just creates greater uncertainty in the marketplace and for biofuel producers and for farmers.
Okay, why are they doing this? What's going on?
Well, I think that's the question that everybody is asking, and I'm not sure we have the full answer. The EPA administrator promised to get the program back on track, and that means getting the RVOs out November 30th and getting them out in a timely fashion, as well as, the volume strong and growing. And instead, they're, pushing this out yet again. And so, we're concerned about the delay, and we're going to do everything we can to accelerate the program.
What does this do to all of the ethanol makers around the country?
Well, it creates a great deal of uncertainty. Instead of providing an outlook for 2021 and for 2022 with strong volumes at 15 billion gallons for conventional and growing numbers for advanced, this just creates this cloud of uncertainty where we won't really even know when 2019 and 2020 will be complied with. So it clouds the future for a bit when, at a time when our industry is getting stronger and coming back from COVID, and just it really creates a great deal of uncertainty going forward.
So what does the industry do?
Well, we're going to do everything we can to push back on EPA and ensure that they do get out the RVOs as soon as they can. We're going to propose comments and testify at the hearing on this and make sure that our voice is heard, that the real impact this has on ethanol producers as well as farmers.
A real hair-pulling case for farmers and the ethanol trade industry. Soybeans were bred to be unaffected by Roundup herbicide designed to control weeds. But water hemp evolved to win that battle. And now University of Illinois weed scientist Aaron Hager says it's happened again.
First in McLean County, then later in Champaign County, Dr. Aaron Hager and his weed science colleagues are finding that water hemp is developing resistance to dicamba.
But when we first started looking at dicamba in field trials at that site in Champaign County, the dicamba performed really as it should. We really didn't have a great amount of concern. The field didn't have a long history of dicamba use. It had zero history of 2,4-D use. But yet we were able to confirm, a reasonably moderate level of 2,4-D resistance in that population. But after about the perhaps second or third season where we had trials there, we noticed that the level of control with dicamba seemed to be declining quite a bit. But we made some other seed collections in that field, and then my colleague, Dr. Tranel, got interested in the population, and he brought on a student to work on this declining response, if you would, to dicamba. And lo and behold, in his greenhouse work, he's been able to show a fairly consistent response, much less control than what you would anticipate, as well as a high percentage of treated plants that actually can survive. But again, it reinforces something we've been saying now for decades about the challenges of things like the water hemp, like the dioecious pigweed. We're not going to solve this issue by chemistry alone. We're going to have to do things in addition to it. We're going to continue to use herbicides without a doubt. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that we will. But as these species continue to basically experiment within their own populations to find these right combinations of genes that allow them to, survive with a different type of herbicide in the field, it really highlights the need that we're going to have to do something in addition to herbicides to try to make sure that at the end of the season there's no seed produced. Because if there's no seed produced, then there's no change in the allelic frequency of any of these resistance genes.
Maybe you could have some weather that the dicamba or the water hemp wouldn't like.
Right.
And then it wouldn't emerge and grow.
Then
Can you do that?
They could do that. Then there also might be the problem too that the corn and the soybeans wouldn't grow then too. It will be one thing I will say though, kind of going up and down again with our temperatures again this week, Stu. Our temperatures are not staying very consistent here for the week. We got some 50s, some 30s, some 40s. All throughout there.
Well, it's that change of seasons.
Yep, those transition months here we just have to ride those out until we get cooled off here. We'll say though that we've got a pretty dry forecast. There's really not much in the way of precipitation on the way for us, only around 1/4 inch at most, and that's going to be mainly from a system that will be coming through here for the beginning of our Sunday. Now, like I was talking with Stu, we've got temperatures that will go from the 50s for the weekend down into the 30s, and then we're back up to the middle 40s by the time we get to the Thanksgiving time there. But until that happens, we're looking at things to be, again, kind of just being pretty unsteady here. That being said, the end of the month looks to be trending closer towards normal, so we may not have so many of these ups and downs here as we go later on into the end of November. And also at that time of the month, too, later on in the next few weeks, looks to be a little bit drier than normal, too, during this time. Our drought monitor is improving across a lot of the west. Obviously, still looking at extreme drought conditions in many spots across California and Nevada, going all the way up into Montana. But we've actually been able to do a pretty good job here in terms of reducing some of the dry spots in northern Illinois. So most of the state's looking to be pretty good right now. But things will be relatively dry for the next couple days until we get to Sunday, when our next large low pressure center begins to form. Most of the rain with that, though, however, is going to be to the east of us. So a lot of Michigan, Ohio, parts of Kentucky are going to see those rain showers out of that. For a lot of Indiana and definitely for us in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, really not much in the way of precipitation out of that system. It's a lot lighter for us on the western side of it. But then likely we'll have another system coming in here. We're thinking by maybe around the Thanksgiving time frame that could give maybe some of the travelers a little bit of an issue there. But as of right now, Stu, looks to be kind of a lighter amount of precipitation in the form of mainly rain for us next Wednesday and Thursday.
Well, most of the crops are out of the field.
Correct.
So it's the weather, we can live with some variable weather there.
Yep, yeah, we'll watch those temperatures here over the next couple weeks here just to avoid some of that up and down variation that we get.
All right. We'll eat some turkey right after this.
Welcome back to Midwest Ag This Week.
Your Thanksgiving turkey. Have you ever thought about how it came to exist? Well, it came from a turkey farm like that of Ken Roth up at Forest, Illinois.
Well, it's been quite a few years ago. Back in 1988, I saw an opportunity to raise turkeys, and I had the facilities to do that. So my wife and I, we started raising turkeys, first for an integrator, and then when that integrator closed up and no longer existed, then we started doing it as an independent producer.
Now, I know you've got to certainly make a living out of it, but you got to have some enjoyment in it too, I assume.
Yeah, we do. Thanksgiving time, it's as much as it is work, it's enjoyable to watch people come in, probably up to 600 people come and get their fresh turkey from us, never frozen. And that's really exciting, and also exciting to hear their comments too when they tell you how much they enjoyed it.
I'll bet. Well, you're 600 going out the door here, but you've got thousands in your sheds and your barns, and where do all those go? You've got pretty good production here.
Yeah, well, we raise for a co-op, which we're part of, called West Liberty Foods at West Liberty, Iowa, west of the Quad Cities, about 30 miles. And there in turn, after they have been further processed into deli meat, a lot of it goes to Subway, not all of it, but goes to Subway and other institutional and also stores such as Walmart, Costco, so forth.
All right, so you're taking them from a poult size. They're already hatched into a baby turkey, and then you're feeding them. And after how long do they get shipped off to West Liberty?
Yeah, well, we get them 1 day old. They've been hatched. We call them 1 day old poults. And then we will have them for 19 weeks, and they'll go from that just a few ounces to 45 pounds.
That is gobbling up food, if you can believe it. Well, early in December, just south of Arthur, there's going to be a lot of red paint going on the auction block. Retired farmer John Daly will be selling his collection of Farmall tractors that he's accumulated almost as far back as USDA's pick program. But instead of one of the local auctioneers selling them, it'll be on your computer.
For 35 years, John Daly's been collecting Farmall tractors, and they're all going to be up for auction real soon.
Well, my dad, my granddad always had Farmall tractors, so I started collecting them. And I started in 1985, and I got a bunch of them. I got a F-20 and a M. They're both 1940. Okay. That's about the oldest. The newest is a 1206. It's about 1960. Probably one of my favorite tractors. When I first started farming, we had one of these, and it pulled a, I don't remember how many, 7 or 8 bottom plow with it, and on land hitch, and it's always been one of my favorites. These tractors, none of them were my dad's or granddad's, but they're ones like them. And well, I fixed them up. And this is a white demonstrator Cub. They were painted white, and they were painted red at first, and then a lot of dealers painted them white. And I found this one. I took the gear shift lever off, and it was red underneath. And I was talking to a guy about it, and he says, well, that's a white demonstrator. So then I had it painted white. Nobody had much use for them, and I just decided it was time to sell them. December 8th, it'll be online with Big Iron.
And so if you like red paint, why, there's where to pick up some great Farmall tractors. I'd like to pick up some corn and beans at a higher price. But Matt Bennett's behind me, and Matt, we've had an up and down week in the market here. Are things kind of fading before the Thanksgiving holiday?
Yeah, a couple of different stories, I guess. For corn, we lost a little bit of ground this week. For soybeans, we actually picked up some ground again. So last week, the USDA report essentially threw a lifeline to the bean market, and it's taken that and ran with it all the way. So we picked up about 20 cents this week as far as beans are concerned. Corn or beans, either one of those two, they're already really good prices. So talked to a lot of producers wondering how much more rally we'll get. I think sometimes whenever you're looking at prices this salty, you kind of have to not get too greedy.
Well, that's right. But prices have stuck at a fairly high level, even in the face of some bearish news.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot going on. I mean, the outside markets this week weren't friendly at all. I mean, the dollar was stronger, crude oil backed off, your Dow went down. There's a lot of different things going on, but you know, I guess moving forward, I'm not bearish by any means, but I think a producer has to pay close attention to, you know, what black swan events could do to the market. And so, you know, if we're heavily covered as far as our inputs are concerned for the 22 crop, we've got to be careful not to be too exposed as far as making sales for corn and soybeans for the 22 crop. So we've been talking to producers quite a bit. I know people feel like $1,200 and higher, so can't make money even with 550 corn. That's not the case. We need to get our calculator out and do the math.
The next week, we've only got 3 trading days. Will it be fairly light traded? Not a whole lot really moving the market because of lack of traders?
Typically, holiday trade will be fairly low in volume, but at the same time, Stu, you got to be careful with a low volume trade. Sometimes a low volume trade can move the market fairly rapidly, but to get that to happen, you're probably going to need some weather out of South America we're not expecting, because right now things look good, or you're going to need some really strong export news, if you want to move the market substantially higher. So I've got to think holiday trade will be quiet. I don't really look for a whole lot to be going on next week.
All right, Matt, thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving
Absolutely.
to you. We'll see you in a few
Same to
days.
you, bud.
We'll make some tracks right after this. Well, the last few fields have been a challenge to harvest with rains that have kept the ground soft. But some farmers have put tracks on their combines, others thinking about it. And with current prices, they're affordable. May make a difference later with tillage. The latter issue was a significant concern to one farmer who farms a lot of wetter ground.
Talk segment today, we're visiting with Eric Steers, who farms between Bellflower and Farmer City, and who just put a new set of tracks on his combine. And this was something that was, you're either going to get through the field or not, kind of muddy up in some parts up here.
Yes, after the recent rains a couple weeks ago, I decided that I needed to do something to be able to get through the fields, and went online and found a dealer out of Kansas, Preferred Equipment, contacted them, and they were able to get me a set of Susi tracks within 24 hours.
All right. Now, how did you put them on? That's my question. Did you have to crawl under the combine and lift it up and have one of your hired men or somebody push them on for you?
Well, actually, it was rather simple. We jacked it up, took the duals off, and these actually bolt right on to where the tires were. And so the installation process was probably 2 or 3 hours with 3 guys. It was rather quick and simple, to be quite honest.
Okay, now this is late in the season. How much of your crop do you still have in the field?
Well, as when we put the tracks on, we had about 800 acres left, and now we're down to maybe a couple hundred acres.
Okay. So it was late, really. This was kind of a late season investment, but you felt it necessary.
Yes, a couple of my farms, we've had history of getting stuck, and when I went out and checked the farms with a bunch of standing water and ponding issues, I knew that it was going to be an issue this fall. So I decided to get tracks and get through it.
Now, are they a permanent addition to the combine?
They come off pretty easy, so I haven't decided whether I'm going to keep them on there yet. But I imagine if it's dry, I'll probably go back to tires. And if we ever run into a situation like this again, the tracks will come on for sure.
And you said the tracks are really going to make it easier for tillage, because you were concerned about that.
Yeah, I don't know what the weather's going to be from here on out. If it turns dry, we can till. That's great. If it turns wet, freezes, there'll be less ruts and compaction we have to deal with next spring.
Okay, so an idea from Eric Steers that may solve one of your problems as well.
We want to talk about fertility for both organic and non-organic farmers. If anhydrous ammonia is breaking your piggy bank, you might try a corn production method that Dr. Richard Mulvaney is researching to help organic corn growers who cannot apply anhydrous prior to planting their seed. He's recommending lesser expensive lime and gypsum to foster microbial nitrogen fixation.
That can help the microbes to fix more nitrogen, we hope.
So if you put lime on soil, microbes suddenly are a little bit more happy than they had been.
In general, yes. They're going to do better if the soil is not acidic. They benefit from the calcium the lime supplies, and the lime is very effective for improving the physical condition of the soil, making it more open and porous, and that plays right back into making the biology work better.
It sounds like we may be hurting the biology if the soil was made acidic from such things as anhydrous ammonia.
You are precisely correct. So in Illinois, the primary source of acidity on production fields is going to be ammoniacal nitrogen. And anhydrous ammonia is a great source. It does acidify the soil. It does mean that farmers have to periodically apply limestone to overcome the acidity. But here we're talking about an approach with organic growers that doesn't bring in that ammoniacal input that will generate the acidity. And so the microbes have a better environment, and especially after we apply these alkaline agents like limestone.
So we've been talking about organic growers. If we talked about commercial corn growers who've been putting on a lot of anhydrous ammonia and are spending a tremendous amount of money to do that, if they limed some of their soil, would they be able to reduce that that anhydrous ammonia application?
The answer is yes. As the soil becomes more hospitable to the microbes that are there, that's going to work better for growing corn, and it's going to mean that the soil itself becomes a better source of nitrogen that the corn can use, and it will stand to reason that there's less need for fertilizer.
Well, we hope you have a good Thanksgiving. Thanks to Ken Roth and his turkeys, and thanks to a settlement in the John Deere strike. That's our Midwest Ag This Week. I'm Stu Ellis. Join us again next weekend.